Hey everybody, I've been requested to create another PvP Frost Death Knight guide, so here we are with 7.3.2 Frost Death Knight guide. I'm going to go into the talents and a little bit about the rotation and a little bit of different situational things you might want to do versus BGs and arenas. So let's go ahead and get this thing going. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the talents that I run. So the talents that I run are Icy Talon, Freezing Frog, Avalanche, Winter is Coming, Inarguable Assault, Gathering Storm, and Hungering Rune Weapon. Now there are a few changes you can make, especially depending on what you're going to be fighting, but for the most part this is kind of the go-to spec. Breast spec isn't as viable as it used to be, which kind of sucks. The breast spec was fun, but at the same time it kind of sucked too because it was really easy to avoid your burst. And while it's still kind of easy for people to avoid your burst on this one, it's not as easy, and two, your burst is every minute versus every 2 minutes, I believe. Yeah, every 2 minutes for breast spec. And remember on my last video, I talked a little bit about how half burst. Now it's just every minute you're full bursting. So Icy Talon's main reason we're going for that is the increased haste. The reason we want that increased haste is when we have Avalanche, when your melee critical strikes hit an enemy, it drops icicles on them. So the faster you're hitting things, the more chances you have crit and all that stuff, as well as it just does a lot more damage. It makes your dots tick more. You're just doing a lot more damage. Now the other thing that's kind of optional, you have Freezing Fog, and then you have Murderous Efficiency. So you can kind of switch between these two. Horn of Winter, not so much. I like to go with Freezing Fog because I prefer to have my Howling Blast do a little more damage, especially as a Death Knight. With us being kited it so much, it's nice to be able to do a little bit more damage when an enemy is trying to kite you and run away. Where the nice thing about having Murderous Efficiency is your killing machine has a 50% chance to gain 1 rune, so that means you're getting more and more runes a lot quicker, and it's a lot more consistent as far as your damage goes. As far as this one, the 58 tier, not too much of a choice here. You're pretty much going to be going with Avalanche. As far as Blinding Sleet and Winter is Coming, that's kind of going to be an optional thing. You're probably going to be wanting Winter is Coming for the most part because it's great when you have an entire team grouped up and you want to burst them all, and if they're all stick near you, they're all going to get stunned, which is nice. The thing about Blinding Sleet that you might want, if you're doing 1v1 against certain classes that won't really get stunned too often, so for example, if you're fighting a Retribution Paladin, and if they're running, you know, their Honor talent, and if they're running, where is it, Adaptation, there's no point in having that because the only stun, the only real CC that we have is that stun. So if you're 1v1ing someone and they're running Adaptation, you're only going to be able to stun every minute, and they're going to be able to get out of a stun every minute. So that's kind of why you wouldn't really want to run Winter is Coming. I could be wrong actually, because I just read that and it stuns them for 4 seconds, and this one is for it removes it for 5 seconds. So if any of you guys know whether it'll remove it or not, I'd need to test that out. I actually haven't tried that, so that'll be interesting to see. So if any of you guys know that, let me know. And then the next tier, of course, is another optional one, Permafrost for more survivability. That's the nice thing about Permafrost and Icy Talons. You have that increased haste, you're doing a lot more damage, and your Permafrost is giving you that pretty much a shield for your auto attacks. And so if you're hitting faster, you're getting more of a shield. It's a lot more of a survivability type ability talent. So then the next talent, the one that I prefer to run, is Inarguable Assault. It's kind of the new one that came out in 7.3 when they kind of revamped the whole Frost spec. So while in combat with no enemies within 8 yards, you gain Inarguable Assault every 1 second. Each stack causes your next auto attack to deal 109,859 additional frost damage. Now I believe it's scaled down quite a bit in PvP, but it's still viable. So kind of the idea behind it is what I'll do in an arena, especially in a 1v1, is I'll throw chains of ice on them and build my inaugural assault attacks. The nice thing again with icy talons, you're doing auto attack damage a lot faster. It stacks up to 10 times. So if you have 10 stacks, you go in, start bursting on someone, you have that extra damage, and it's quite a bit. It's really significant amount of damage, especially if they're kiting you. The nice thing about it is we've been complaining about, you know, mobility. While we still don't have the best mobility in the game, we do have this to kind of make up for it. So if we're being kited, if we can't get to our target, at least we're getting a buff that gives us more damage by the time we can get to the enemy. Then the next talent, pretty much Gathering the Storm. You're going to want to go with this one regardless. You're not going to really want Frozen Pulse or Frost Scythe. In fact, Frost Scythe is such a cool talent, but it's just a talent that was not really ever good for this entire expansion. So Gathering the Storm, each rune spent during Remorseless Winter increases the damage by 15% and extends its duration by 5.5 seconds. So when you're bursting, you can pretty much keep your Remorseless Winter up for 15 seconds. Now it's normally only lasts I believe like 10 seconds, but you can pretty much keep it up until the next cooldown while you're bursting. You can't really do that every time, but it really adds a lot of damage, and that's kind of what the whole spec is built around. It's built around that avalanche damage and that Gathering the Storm damage when you're bursting. Now the last tier, not really going to want to go with Obliteration or Breath. Hungering Rune Weapon is still really awesome. Now again, like I said, this is a PvP guide. It's not very good for PvE, I think, just for the fact that it's a 3-minute cooldown. So Empyrean Rune Weapon, gaining 1 rune every 5 and 5 runic power every 1.5 seconds, and granting 20% additional haste. So Icy Talons, we're getting 12% haste for up to 3 times. So 10, 20, 30, 36% extra haste from that. An additional 20% haste from this. Sorry. That adds up quite a bit. So that's kind of how the whole thing marvels around. It means your avalanche damage is doing a lot. It's giving you those runes so you can build your Gathering the Storm stacks, and it just does insane amount of AoE damage. Like if you can get all of the team grouped up and you can burst, it is phenomenal how much damage you can do, especially if you get that stun off. And then Honor Talents, Gladiator Medallion is going to be your best bet. Adaptation for certain 1v1 situations and certain comps. Reinforced Armor, it's usually what you're going to be going with. Sparring for melee cleave type classes. Dark Simulacrum or Anti-Magic Zone, it's really situational. Dark Sim for those comps where you're going to be needing a lot of CC, and even in BGs it's really nice. It's also awesome if you are able to like steal a heal when your healer's being CC'd. I'll try and steal a heal, that way I can kind of help my healer out. But the biggest part with Dark Simulacrum is stealing that CC, stealing those abilities that can really clutch a game, like you know, like a Polymorph, Cyclone, Ring, if you can get a Ring. Actually, I don't think you can steal Ring, but like Polymorph, all that stuff, Cyclone. Anti-Magic Zone, so if you're not too worried about CC too much, Anti-Magic Zone is great for caster comps. Throw it down, it reduces damage taken by 60% for 10 seconds, so that's really good. And then next one, Necrotic Aura for the most part increases your magical damage, but again, it really depends on the comp you're facing and who you're playing with. So I prefer Necrotic Aura personally because of how much magical damage we do with Frost and all that stuff. But Decomposing Aura is also a really good choice, especially if you're playing with someone who, like a warrior like TSG. Decomposing Aura is really good because they don't really have that magical damage, so this will help benefit your team a lot more. And then Heartstop Aura if you're facing, you know, Mistweaver Monks, Resto Druids, anything that is going to be running away from you a lot. This is great because it reduces the cooldown of their like reduces the cooldown recovery rate of abilities. Oh, all abilities by 20%. And then Delirium is the one I was thinking about, where it reduces like movement enhancement abilities by 25%, stacking up to 2 times. So if they have a minute cooldown on Displacer Beast, which I don't think it's a minute, it might be a minute. If you have 2 stacks of that, it's going to make it a minute and a half, and that really is pretty clutch in certain situations. And then as far as the last tier for your PvP talents, Overpowered Rune Weapon, You're really going to want that, especially with the current spec, because that's what is going to be allowing you to burst every single minute. Because it reduces the cooldown of empowering rune weapon by 2 minutes. So that'll allow you to, your Pillar of Frost is only on a minute cooldown. That's what allows us to burst every single minute and allows us to have that insane pressure all the time. Because most classes, their burst isn't every minute. It's like every minute and a half, 2 minutes. And that's what gives us as Death Knights as an advantage, is how much damage we can push out and how quickly we can recover it. So I'm going to go ahead and go into our, what's it called? Our rotation. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get into the rotation. Rotation, it is really simple. Frost Death Knights have hands down got to be one of the easiest classes to play. So I kind of want to show you guys what I was talking about with that, if I can remember the freaking name of it, Inaugural Assault. So I put a stack on it up here. You'll see it. You'll see it. I'm too close to target dummies. Cool. That's the thing that kind of sucks about it. If you're near any target dummies or any like other enemies, it won't build. So you really have to pay attention and make sure you're not near anyone. And you also have to make sure that you remain in combat. So right now, see how I have Inaugural Assault at 10 stacks. Another thing I'll really try to do before I burst. Now, the best thing you could do is try and wait until you have 3 stacks of Icy Talons. Oh, I freaking lost it. Of Icy Talons before you go ahead and burst. So if you can kite a little bit and try and build up your runic power, throw chains of ice on them, and mainly 1v1. In a 3v3, you're not really going to be able to do this. You can try, especially if you're working with your team, to try and build up some runic power, keep your runes, build up that Inaugural Assault, and it's all situational. But if the best case scenario, you have 10 stacks of Inaugural Assault and 3 Icy Talons. So you can come in, throw in a Frost Strike in there. You have only 5 seconds to get another one in. Now, the nice thing about Frost Strike is it is range. So boom, we got 3 stacks of Icy Talons. We can go ahead and go in and burst. Now you need to make sure that you keep it in. So pop Pillar of Frost, pop Empowering Rune Weapon, and you need to build your stack. So don't really too much about spamming Howling Blast until you get your 10 stacks of your Gathering the Storm. Then you can kind of worry about using your Howling Blast in there. Because I don't even use my trinket, but you really need to make sure that you're keeping up your Icy Talons and keeping up the stacks of Gathering the Storm. And that's pretty much all there is to it, is just spamming Obliterate, using Howling Blast when you get Rime after you get your 10 stacks of Gathering the Storm, because that 10 stacks are super important. So you pretty much just want to spam not Howling Blast, but Obliterate until you can get those 10 stacks. Once you get those 10 stacks, you're pretty much good, and you'll do insane amount of damage. That's pretty much it. It's really easy. Like, Frost Rotation is the easiest. Pretty much build your Gathering the Storm stacks. Use Howling Blast when Rime procs, after you have your 10 stacks. And then, as you saw, after I was still bursting, but I was able to keep Remorseless Winter up, and right after Remorseless Winter ended, I was able to use it again. Now, if we were attacking a PvP dummy, which I really should have been doing, my Hungering Rune Weapon would already be off cooldown and we'd already be ready to burst again, which is what makes this spec so awesome. And now, after you're done, after your Remorseless Winter falls off, that's pretty much when you're going to want to go ahead and use Cinderghost's Fury. That, or you might want to save it. I typically try to save it towards a moment where I know that I will get a killing blow. It's really important to save that. Usually what I'll do is I'll just do my first burst, and that'll just kind of put the pressure, get them to use their defenses. That's the important part, is getting them to use their defensive. And it probably doesn't work too much in the higher rated stuff, but when you're facing, in battlegrounds and stuff, or when you're doing 1v1s against people who might not know what they're doing, a lot of people see a Remorseless Winter and they immediately start popping their cooldowns because they might not have add-ons to tell them, hey, he's bursting. Now, of course, this is not always going to work, but try popping just Remorseless Winter. It's only 20 seconds. Just start spamming Obliterate. Make them feel like they're being pressured, and they'll start popping their defensives, and then you only have to wait 10 seconds, and then you can burst. But that's pretty much all there is to it, guys. It is extremely easy. Death Knight, hands down, probably the easiest class. Some other things you might want to keep in mind, like I said, have your macros. So I have a macro for my burst. It pretty much cast Pillar of Frost, cast Remorseless Winter, used my trinkets when I had them, and when I was a Orc, it cast Blood Fury as well. Other things to keep in mind, try and save Icebound Fortitude for when you really need to go on the defensive. Sometimes I use it to get out of stuns when I know that their pressure isn't all there, and I know I'll have it when I need it again. Sometimes you can use it, if you use it incorrectly, it can really cost you a match. Like in my duel against Savix, I used Icebound Fortitude wrong at one point, and I lost the match because of that one mistake. Icebound Fortitude is an extremely overpowered ability, mainly because if you have if you look at your weapon, Death Strike heals you for 300% since we're going to be PvP, since I have stupid relics that increase it even more, which is useless for me, but it increases your healing by 300% when Icebound Fortitude is active. That is insane. So it can pretty much take you from dead to max really quickly. Another thing is using anti-magic shell correctly. When your healer really needs you to play defensive, make sure you're communicating with your healer. If you're just playing by yourself, use it when you know they're going to be using their big cooldowns, or if you know they're going to stun. I am very offensive with my anti-magic shell, meaning like when I was dueling Savix, I knew, okay, he's probably going to go in and try and stun and go ham. Granted, he stunned a lot quicker than I could cast anti-magic shell, but it would have allowed me to pretty much judge when they're going to use an ability. Because if you can judge when they're going to use a stun or use a fear, well, you can see when they're going to use a fear, but like stuns and stuff mainly, you can use anti-magic shell, boom, all of a sudden they wasted a stun and you're all set. I've pretty much covered everything. There isn't too much to this class. Pretty much just kite, try and build up those stacks, go ham with your macros, pay attention to what they're using. If you're a Blood Elf, Arcane Torrent to kick. I mean, there really isn't much to this class. It's extremely easy. I feel bad because like the talents section took longer than me telling you about the rotation, but it's just stupid easy. And like I said, if you're in a match where you just cannot, you know, burst right away, or you can't build up those stacks, you just run in, just start bursting, just start spamming Obliterate. Once you do that, use your Empowering Rune weapon. Use those Frost Strikes, build up those stacks, and then just once you have your 10 stacks, you can start using Obliterate and using Rhyme off cooldown. Now, it's very important to make sure you keep using Obliterate. You want your runes to be eaten because you don't want to waste your Empowering Rune weapon. And that's pretty much it. And as you can see, I already have Remorseless Winter again, and we still have our Icy Talons up, and that's the biggest thing. The hardest thing really about the spec is making sure you're paying attention to Icy Talons. Once you get really good at it, you kind of build an internal clock on how to keep Icy Talons up. You pretty much just want to alternate in between Obliterate and Frost Strike when you're in between your burst, and that's about it, guys. That's really it. Alright guys, so I figured I should kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and run in, and I don't know what that rogue's doing. I'm going to go ahead and try and build our stacks real quick. We have a pet on us, so we're not really going to be able to do too much. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to build up our Icy Talon stacks real quick. We got a quick stun on us. Luckily they're going for the protection pally or protection warrior for some reason. Rogue's on me. I'm probably going to have to go ahead and play defensive here. I'm going to go ahead and start my burst now though. He's probably going to cloak or evasion. There we go. He's going for a fear. We're going to build up our stacks. He's going to run away. We're going to grip him back in here. Our burst is already down. This isn't the best start. We should be fine though. I'm going to go ahead and trinket that. Get that killing blow with our Syndragos's Fury, and that's the way it is. It's easy. Being a Death Knight is just way too easy, guys. I'm going to tell you what. Now, obviously, you can't always get your way. I wanted to build my stacks, but I had a pet on me. You pretty much just have to adapt to what you have going on. So, and again, I didn't really get to go in full on burst because I ended up having to play defensive there. But remember, sometimes a really good offense is a good defense. Don't be afraid to put out pressure to get them to switch from being offensive to being defensive. Because that rogue was going in on me, but as soon as I started my burst, he evasion and kind of stepped away from me, and the warlock went to try and fear me, and I used anti-magic shell offensively to pretty much prevent him from fearing me. So hopefully this video helped you out, guys. Alright guys, so hopefully that guide was helpful for you. If I missed anything, just let me know. But this is how I play Frost. This is how I kind of Death Knight things up. It's pretty easy. I'm not even gonna like lie and talk about how hard the Death Knight class is. It's stupid easy. it's been stupid easy. It's probably the easiest class in the game, if not Hunters, which it's such an easy class. You guys got it. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys during the next video. Thank you for watching.